Have you ever stopped to think about what's actually swirling inside the chicken broth you pour without hesitation? You splash it into soups, soften vegetables with it, revive leftovers, and build quick rice bowls, all because it feels safe, steady, and impossible to get wrong. But what if the broth you trust isn't giving you the comfort it promises? Some cartons hide sodium levels that hit harder than the dish itself. Others lean on flavor boosters to fake richness instead of drawing it from real bones. And a few have even ended up on recall lists because of damaged packaging. None of that shows up on the warm, familiar label. The golden color looks right. The words sound reassuring. But comfort shouldn't hide shortcuts. So before you grab your next can or carton, it's worth looking closely at which broths support your cooking and which ones should quietly leave your kitchen. Number 1. Collagen chicken broth. Most people keep a can of collagen broth tucked in the pantry. It feels reliable, something you reach for when you want a warm bowl without thinking too much. But the moment you actually read the label, that sense of comfort starts to shift. Right there in small print, about 1,460 milligrams of sodium in one can, plus sugar and yeast extract folded in for extra push. When you pour it cold, nothing looks out of place. The broth shines pale gold, the aroma hits quickly, and the promise feels familiar. But a closer look shows that the flavor isn't coming from deep, slow-simmered bones. It's coming from add-ins designed to mimic that richness. Sugar smooths the taste. Yeast extract widens the flavor. Salt carries everything on its shoulders. The broth that should be round and steady ends up leaning heavily on enhancers to feel complete. You notice it most when it hits the pot. You expect it to open up, but the first sip feels sharp. A couple of bites later, the flavor fades. By the bottom of the bowl, you're left with a dry mouth and a need for water. It's not unsafe, just unsatisfying, leaving you more drained than comforted. As you cook, the issue grows. A chicken noodle soup that should deepen over time somehow becomes weaker. Vegetables lose their sweetness. Even freshly shredded chicken tastes unexpectedly flat. The salt climbs higher, while the broth itself slips away, leaving everything trapped in a narrow, single-note lane. Instead of supporting the dish, it starts demanding extra work from you. This isn't about rejecting convenience. Convenience is useful. But a good broth, boxed, canned, or homemade, should act like a foundation, not a distraction. Here, that foundation wobbles. You don't get slow extraction, real body, or gentle richness. You get a liquid behaving more like a seasoning than a broth. And the more you cook with it, the clearer that trade-off becomes. Simple dishes reveal it fastest. A chicken and rice bowl tastes strangely empty no matter how much you adjust it. Noodles feel metallic. Even quick gravies turn salty yet thin. You keep correcting. More herbs, more aromatics, more everything, because the broth never carries its share. For many families, collagen broth has been around for years. Familiarity makes it easy to trust. But the label tells another story. Sky-high sodium, sugar that doesn't belong, and yeast extract standing in for real bones. None of that builds better meals. Comfort food should feel earned, not forced. And while this broth might look the part, the flavor leans more on intensity than honesty. Number 2. Great value chicken broth. If collagen raises questions about salt and shortcuts, great value takes the concern in a different direction. Here, the issue isn't only what's inside, it's what's happened around it. Start with the basics. One recent FDA recall linked to certain great value family-size broths happened because the packaging seal failed. When that seal weakens, bacteria can enter, and the carton may bulge or soften. Alongside that are versions containing MSG, dextrose, autolyzed yeast, and artificial flavor boosters. It's quite a list for something that should really be just chicken, vegetables, water, and a few herbs. Over time, those additives add up. High sodium and processed enhancers force your body to pull in extra water to maintain balance. That
more strain on the kidneys and digestion working harder than the meal deserves. It's not the single bowl that matters, it's the pattern. When the base of your food relies on chemistry rather than nutrients, your body pays for it quietly. Many people notice bloating, sluggishness after meals, or an odd sense of heaviness even after eating something simple. A chicken and rice bowl shouldn't make you feel thirsty or drained, yet it often does with broths like these. And repeated week after week, your system adapts to a salt load it was never meant to handle. Now compare that to real broth, one made from bones, steady heat, and ingredients you can recognize. Real broth hydrates instead of stressing your system. Its sodium is balanced. Its proteins and minerals help you feel grounded. It builds flavor naturally, not synthetically. Your body responds differently. Steadier digestion, calmer circulation, fewer spikes and crashes. It works with you, not against you. That's why the contrast hits so clearly. Great value offers convenience and low prices, but the hidden cost shows up long before your taste buds catch it. What feels like a simple shortcut becomes a long-term burden. Extra pressure on the kidneys, tension in the bloodstream, and fatigue you never tie back to the broth in your kitchen. Price matters for families, but what's inside the carton matters more. Good food doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to avoid cutting corners that shift the strain onto you. Here's the simple takeaway. If broth is something you use often, pick one that leaves your body calmer, not more overwhelmed. Read the label, look for honest ingredients, and choose the one that supports you long after the bowl is empty. Your broth should nourish, not make your body work overtime. Number 3. Tabachnik Classic Wholesome Chicken Broth. A broth that calls itself wholesome should, at the very least, earn that word. And at first glance, Tabachnik seems like it might. The packaging looks calm. The colors feel gentle. The liquid inside appears so clear it almost resembles lightly tinted water. The whole carton gives off a sense of something soft and uncomplicated, perfect for anyone wanting a break from heavy flavors. But the moment you turn it around, that gentle promise starts to crack. A single cup carries about 900 milligrams of sodium and delivers 0 grams of protein. Not low, 0. That means no collagen, no substance, no real extraction. A broth with no protein is a broth that barely touched chicken bones at all. And when you open the carton and the first scent that rises is a bright, salty hit, no chicken, no vegetables, you suddenly realize the label may be the most truthful part of the product. Once you examine how this broth is made, the numbers make more sense. No protein means minimal extraction. That usually points to fewer bones, shortened simmering times, or a production line that treats broth like flavored water. In systems like these, salt becomes the structure. It isn't amplifying depth, it's pretending to be it. Sodium gives your tongue a quick signal that something savory is happening, even when nothing deeper is underneath. And there's a reason a brand leans into that. Real bones cost more. Long simmering slows down production. Extraction varies from batch to batch. But salt? Salt is cheap, predictable, and endlessly consistent. It smooths over the gaps, masks weak ingredients, and guarantees the same taste no matter what the supply chain looked like that week. From a manufacturing standpoint, it's efficient. Nutritionally, it's hollow. So marketing steps in to fill the silence. Words like wholesome, classic, small batch, they're chosen carefully. They appeal to shoppers wanting something light, tidy, and closer to homemade without the hours of simmering. And the crystal clear appearance reinforces the illusion. Clear must mean clean, right? Not here. The clarity isn't a sign of purity, it's a sign of absence. The broth looks light because almost nothing is in it. You notice the problem immediately in the pot. A holiday soup built on this broth tastes strangely thin, no matter how much good chicken or fresh herbs you add. The flavor stays on the surface instead of settling into the dish. Nothing melds, nothing deepens. The salt hits quickly, then disappears, leaving behind a bowl that somehow tastes both loud and hollow. You keep adding garlic, thyme, seasoning, anything to build a base that never forms. And that's the truth of it. Tabachnik's lightness isn't elegance, it's emptiness. A broth that looks pure, promises comfort, but doesn't have enough inside it to hold a meal together. If a carton labeled wholesome can hide this many shortcuts, the next broth shows something even more complicated: how an organic badge can suggest a story the ingredients can't quite fulfill. Number 4. Imagine organic, free-range chicken broth. When you see the word organic on a broth, you expect warmth, honesty, and something closer to tradition. You expect slow heat, steady flavor, and a broth that honors the old ways of simmering bones and vegetables. Imagine Organic gives that impression at first glance. The packaging feels gentle and reassuring, almost like the broth inside must be made with the same care. Traditional broth has a certain language: soft steam curling upward, a warm, slightly clouded gold color, a slow, round chicken aroma with faint onion and carrot resting behind it. And when you sip it, there's a bit of weight, a natural richness that sits comfortably on your palate. That's the broth many people grew up with. That's the feeling organic should preserve. But the salted version from Imagine misses that mark almost immediately. The color feels too bright. The aroma rises quickly. Not chicken, but a sharp vegetable note, almost like celery water. The texture is thin, and the flavor is quick, pointed, and mostly salt. Then comes the label, around 720 milligrams of sodium per cup with less than 1 gram of protein. A broth with so little protein hasn't drawn much from bones at all. Salt and aromatics are doing the heavy lifting, offering lift but no depth. People notice. Reviews call it too salty, vegetable water, and not real broth. These aren't dramatic complaints. They're the quiet disappointment of dishes that never quite land. When a broth adds sharpness instead of comfort, it disrupts the emotional weight of a meal too. You see this most in simple cooking. A porridge base ends up oddly vegetable. Shredded chicken never blends into the broth. Everything tastes like separate parts instead of one bowl. The broth lifts the flavors up but never holds them together. And in one kitchen, the feeling showed itself in a single moment. A husband tasted the soup, paused, and gave a small shake of his head. Not unkind, just honest. His wife stood at the stove, realizing she had added everything except the one thing the broth was supposed to provide: depth. And the broth simply didn't show up. Number 5. Swanson chicken broth. Swanson is the broth many households grew up trusting. For decades, it sat in pantries and cupboards, a familiar blue carton that didn't need a second thought. For many cooks, Swanson wasn't a brand, it was the default. But tasting it today tells a different story. The color jumps out first. A bright, almost glowing yellow, sharper than anything produced by slow-simmered chicken. It's clear, but too clear. Polished, engineered. Raise it to your nose, and the salt comes forward before anything else. One sip confirms it. The sodium hits fast, overshadowing the chicken. A single cup holds around 860 milligrams of sodium. A number reflected in a 14-brand taste test where it ranked at the bottom for being overwhelmingly salty and surprisingly thin. As it simmers, its design becomes obvious. Swanson's regular broth is built for massive distribution. To taste the same everywhere, it can't depend heavily on real variations in bones or simmer times. Instead, it leans on salt and natural flavorings to create the impression of depth. The result? A broth that shows up loudly but not deeply. The nostalgia is still there, but the flavor isn't. What once felt warm and rounded now feels fast and sharp. It's consistent, yes, but consistent in a way that leaves the pot searching for balance. Reviews echo that. Too salty. Tastes like yellow water. Not the Swanson I grew up with. Feels thinner. They're not angry comments, they're tired ones. They read like people mourning a flavor that stopped growing with them. The issue becomes clearest in simple meals. A chicken and rice pot starts well, then slips. The brightness spikes instead of mellowing. The chicken fades. The broth refuses to settle. You try herbs, lemon, dilution, nothing brings harmony. Even quick dishes, gravy, vegetable soups, noodle bowls, all follow the same pattern. Swanson brings intensity, but not foundation. Height, but not body. Presence, but not depth. It lifts flavors without supporting them. Everything stays slightly disconnected, as if the pot is trying to make up for something missing underneath. For people who grew up with Swanson, the realization is bittersweet. The carton looks the same, the brand feels the same, but the broth doesn't. Some childhood staples evolve with us, others stay frozen in time. Swanson tries to hold on to comfort through color and salt, but the flavor tells a different story, one that can't quite meet the memory it once shaped. After walking through these disappointments, it's easy to assume the grocery shelf is full of compromises, but that's only part of the picture. A few brands still commit to the slow work, the real extraction, the steady simmer, the honest method you can taste without second-guessing. These are the broths that don't depend on slogans or engineered colors. They depend on patience. And when you pour them into a pot, they don't shout. They just settle in. Quiet, steady, real. Number 6. Kettle and Fire Chicken Bone Broth. The first thing that greets you is the aroma. Not sharp, not dressed up, not trying to fool you, just a slow, natural warmth rising from the pot. The kind of scent that feels like it's coming from real bones meeting real heat. Kettle and Fire lets that simplicity come forward before anything else. No flashy colors, no oversized claims, just a broth that feels alive the moment it starts to warm. Over the span of more than 20 slow hours, the bones release what they naturally hold: collagen, marrow, and steady richness. That's why a single cup delivers roughly 10 grams of protein without leaning on artificial boosters or flavor tricks. It's not built on shortcuts, it's built on time, on patience, on genuine simmering that extracts what's already there. Pour it into a pot, and you can see the honesty immediately. The color is a soft, cloudy gold, not neon, not overly polished. It looks like something made in a kitchen, not manufactured in a rush. With each wave of steam, the chicken note rises gently, gaining fullness the way only long simmering can create. Nothing jumps out at you, nothing feels engineered. The flavor builds slowly and steadily. And that's why it behaves differently in real cooking. Add it to rice and the grains become rounder and fuller. Add it to vegetables and their natural sweetness feels deeper. Add it to a simple soup and everything settles in without you having to adjust or second guess. The broth doesn't overpower the dish or hide what's there. It anchors everything quietly with depth that comes from bones, not from sodium. Home cooks often mention the same thing online. This is one of the rare broths you can use without rebalancing the entire pot. People call it the closest thing to homemade, rich but not heavy, smooth in a way that feels earned, not engineered. These aren't dramatic claims. They're small confirmations that the broth performs the way real broth should: steady, supportive, consistent. And the proof shows up in small kitchen moments. A cook comes home after a long day, warms the broth, takes a quick sip, and pauses. That tiny nod, the one that means, "This already tastes right." No scrambling for extra herbs, no diluting, no trying to fix what should have been there from the beginning. The broth holds its own, so the rest of the dish doesn't have to work as hard. A broth made this way doesn't need to shout. It doesn't rely on heavy salt. It doesn't need additives to fill empty spaces. Its depth feels earned because it is earned through long simmering and real ingredients. And when a broth is built on actual extraction, it settles into a pot the way a strong foundation settles into a home: quiet, steady, reliable. By the time the pot is empty, you notice something simple. Everything tasted like itself, just more grounded and complete. The broth didn't steal the spotlight, it held up the dish. That's what real broth is supposed to do. Number 7. Pacific Foods Organic Chicken Broth. Pacific Foods started in Oregon. Broth should taste like it came from someone's kitchen, not a machine. Long before organic became a trend or clean labels became marketing points, Pacific rooted itself in a slower, simpler idea: real vegetables, gentle simmering, and flavors that reflect the hands that prepared them. Farms, quiet communities, honest cooking. That spirit still shapes their broth today. You feel that history the moment you open the carton. The aroma rises softly, warm, balanced, free of sharp edges. The broth itself carries a pale golden color, the kind you get when carrots, celery, onions, and chicken cook together at a calm pace. Nothing is forced, nothing feels rushed. The ingredient list follows the same philosophy: short, simple, organic. No enhancers, no masking ingredients, no artificial flavor pushing. And the unsalted version keeps sodium low enough that the cook stays in control, not the manufacturer. With around 1 gram of protein per cup, its purpose isn't richness, it's purity. It reminds you of the kind of soup simmered on quiet afternoons, where flavors grow naturally rather than being engineered. Its price reflects that authenticity. Slightly higher than bargain cartons, but far from the boutique broths. It sits comfortably in the middle. Not the cheapest, not the splurge, just a fair exchange for real ingredients and careful cooking. It feels like you're paying for the work, not the marketing. Over time, that approach helped Pacific become one of the first widely available organic broths in the country, long before the rest of the industry caught up. Its reputation wasn't built on trends, but on steady, consistent quality. When you pour it into the pot, it behaves exactly as you'd expect from something made with intention: gentle, balanced, adaptable. Added to rice and the grains warm without becoming salty. Added to vegetables and their natural sweetness remains their own. Use it as the base for noodles on a busy weeknight, and the broth supports the dish instead of steering it. It lets everything breathe. One small scene captures its spirit best. A parent on a tired weekday, making a simple noodle soup for their child. The broth simmers. They take a sip to check. And there's that soft sigh, the kind that says, "This will turn out fine." It's the reassurance that comes from something clean and respectful, something that doesn't bring chaos to the pot. It may cost a little more, but it honors the craft of real broth, and it gives the meal space to bloom. Chicken broth looks simple on the shelf, a box promising warmth whenever you need it. But once you start paying attention, the differences become clearer. Some rely on quick fixes: salt, additives, artificial color. Others take the long road, letting bones, vegetables, and time do the heavy lifting. And that difference matters more than it seems. Broth is the backbone of so many meals. When the base is weak, the entire dish wobbles. When the base is honest, everything else stands stronger. The reassuring part? You don't need perfection, you just need awareness. A moment to read the carton, a moment to choose the kind of work you want supporting your food. Because comfort doesn't come from shortcuts, it comes from care. This video does not promote division or misinformation. Everything here is shared to encourage thought, conversation, and understanding of how food choices shape our everyday lives. If today's breakdown connected with you, leave a comment. Let's keep the conversation moving. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss our next deep dive.